Recently I've been playing a fair amount of CSGO competitive mode, and while it's not a new topic that accusing people of hacking, smurfing and being lucky is rife through almost every match, and that isn't exactly helped by the fact that in some cases it's true. The background footage is made up of some vaguely competent plays that I've had recently. I've had to cut a lot of really bad plays out to make the video this long, as I'm an entirely average player. The issues I'm talking about really took off as matchmaking systems moved toward trying to make matches fair and balance out games so that you generally play against players with a similar skill or experience level as yourself, which is a good thing, but the problem is people are always going to abuse that. The reason the system moved in this direction initially, I believe, was probably a relatively good idea, but later with the heavy focus on esports and competitive gaming present in most of the top level multiplayer games, it seems to have gone away from having fun close matches and moved into who has the highest number and how much better am I than them. And when you're being beaten, some feel that the only way you could possibly have been beaten is if the other player is somehow cheating the system, either by smurfing, hacking, using an easy gun, or just being plain lucky. But it's not only that, a lot of the recent big multiplayer games are very reliant on team play. You depend on your teammates to get kills, play well and give you info, and if they aren't helping you then they're spoiling your fun and wasting your time, all perfect causes for inducing rage. The worst part of this all being that you can't even leave because otherwise you ruin the game for everyone else and must be punished for it. So you have to sit there analysing your frequent and inexplicable deaths, i.e. creating excuses as to why you're losing. Previously you used to be greeted with a long list of servers and you'd probably have 2 or 3 favourite servers which you could jump on, and there would be a full range of skill levels in the game, and if one game was two-sided you just left and you joined another server. No penalties, no lost time, and less rage inducing. Don't get me wrong, people have made excuses forever. It's nothing new, but I feel that matchmaking systems are the perfect breeding ground for people to make excuses, and while they produce the occasional perfect match, holding a 51% win ratio across your games mean that half the time you're getting your ass whooped. Anyway, the first excuse I'd like to tackle is probably the biggest and affects almost every game with any kind of matchmaking rank system. This is smurfing, which is players creating alternate accounts in order to play against less experienced players. Now this act isn't necessarily malicious, and I suspect more often than not that it's used purely for people to play with their friends in order to give them a chance rather than throwing them to the wolves in a higher tier of play. However, there is also a small section of players which abuse the system, as they always will, in order to get easy wins. The latter I don't really understand. It's essentially shooting fish in a barrel, which sure, if you've just lost several games in a row it's nice for it to go the other way for a change, but if you stomp every single game it somewhat loses its appeal. This is an awkward problem to solve as players will find a way around any system you throw at them, and some just want to hang out with their mates. If you've ever tried playing a match several ranks above your post, you'll realise how insignificant you feel. The next is aimbots, wall hacks and cheating in general, which interestingly is still a problem after all these years, presumably because the systems have just become more advanced and harder to identify automatically by games, but it is at least less common than it was before. The fact that it exists makes it the perfect go-to excuse for someone being better than you, however. I do find it amusing that I still get reported from time to time for hacking. I take it more as a compliment than anything else, as it must mean I've done something well. I think the reason that it still happens is a lot of players still have a random spike in ability every now and then. It happens in all walks of life, from playing the perfect game of pool one day to landing a headshot while jumping through a window in Counter-Strike. But I think to some degree you'll see it a lot in FPS games because there are a lot of long-time gamers who don't play as much as they once did or play a different game now, and every now and then their muscle memory will kick in and reaction times will speed up and suddenly you play like a god. It could quite easily seem like they're hacking to the casual observer, but blind luck is probably a better description. On a serious note though, if you do use cheats in multiplayer games, you're a dick. Stop it. The final excuse I'd like to mention, and perhaps the most pathetic, is when people complain about others using equipment or characters which are freely available for anyone to use because they are easy to use, or because they can't use an alternative. I frequently use the same gun in CSGO because I know how to use it and it's a reliable source for getting kills in a variety of scenarios, but you still get the odd players claiming that it's lame using the same gun repeatedly. I dislike the AWP, but I don't complain when I get hit in the face for the 100th time with it. The best thing to do in that scenario is counter it, which is usually a heavy focus in most of these online games anyway. Use a gun which focuses on the weaknesses of the person that keeps killing you, and if you can't beat them, join them, because you can pick exactly the same that they can. Obviously this doesn't pass in every game, and it's actually one of the reasons I hate the system that COD has used for many years, where you need to unlock weapons by completing various tasks, as it means that until you unlock a better weapon, not only you're at a skill disadvantage, but at a weapon disadvantage too. But if a game offers you the opportunity to use the same equipment, don't complain, man up and find a way around it. I guess the point of this video was just to expose my gut feelings on why I've mostly given up on online multiplayer. I still dabble, but it's like staring into the void. If you look for too long, it'll absorb you and whatever remains of your dignity. It also saddens me slightly that I don't think I've seen anyone say nice shot or genuinely being a good sport in the last few weeks. Online gaming has become a very negative place, and unless you play with friends, it's a hostile and uninviting place. What are your thoughts on the way matchmaking systems work these days? Do you think that players' attitudes are worse than they used to be? Would you rather see the old manual search systems make a comeback? Let me know below, and thanks for listening.